Alright, so earlier today, Deshaun Watson's case was heard by a grand jury out here in Houston. Needless to say, this was a huge day for Deshaun Watson's football career, and based on the information that just dropped, the grand jury has declined to indict him of any criminal charges. That means a few things, and there's a few things that it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that he absolutely did not do any of this stuff, which kind of goes without saying, but on the internet it doesn't, so I have to say that anyway. But it's hard to have a strong opinion on that side of it when none of us were there for any of these situations, and we really don't know for sure what took place. With that said, sexual assault is an extremely serious offense. I don't rock with that shit, but I'm also not equipped to pretend that there aren't situations where guys are falsely accused. I've covered them on this channel, Sean Oakman being one of the biggest ones that most people know about. At the same time, I've also covered actual predators. So both sides of the coin are real, and unfortunately, they both happen pretty damn frequently. With that said, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend to know Deshaun did something criminal based on the fact that he had a lot of accusations. But you also have to acknowledge the fact that just because he didn't do anything criminal doesn't mean that he didn't do anything immoral. But with that said, I've been around long enough and I see wild stuff all the time to know all of our morals are not the same. But even if he did do something or several things immoral, the grand jury decided there wasn't enough evidence to prove that any of it was criminal. So those are the facts that we're working with. Let's move on. Deshaun Watson, the football player, like I said on Twitter, is officially back. He's officially back in the NFL. Now, he does still have civil cases looming, but the criminal cases are done. So today I want to talk about a few things. How did we get here, coming back from, what we knew as wholesome Deshaun to a situation where now he's gonna absolutely have a cloud hanging over his head for the foreseeable future. Also want to talk about what went on in court today. He had a hearing and a deposition, and at the end I want to briefly just speculate on what could happen next. What's next for Deshaun in his career? Other than that, you already know what time it is though, fellas. Cue the Wayne.
Yeah, you'll never know quitter, 'cause I'ma go get her.
So Deshaun Watson had a pretty crazy situation or set of situations over the past year. But of course his story goes back way further than that. And this isn't his official what happened to video, so I'm not gonna get too deep into it. But it goes back as far as another NFL player, or a former one, Warrick Dunn, actually building a home for Deshaun and his mom through some type of NFL program way back in the day. Deshaun grows up, he's that dude, goes to Clemson, loses to Alabama in the national championship, only to come back the very next year and win. If he wasn't already on people's radars, this was the moment that absolutely did it. Then he came into the NFL and wasted no time. In 4 seasons, dude made 3 Pro Bowls. He's been in the playoffs, has a playoff win, done all of that stuff, and mind you, this is all planned for the Houston Texans. He's even led the NFL in passing yards, and he did all of that by the time he was 25. So Deshaun Watson's star was way up here, and it was only continuing to rise. In 2020, he signed a 4-year contract extension worth nearly $180 million, with 111 of it fully guaranteed. Second most ever behind Sir Patrick Mahomes. Now, with the way the Texans were being run and a lot of the stuff they allowed Bill O'Brien to do, a lot of people felt this was kind of a mistake, and sure enough, a year later, Deshaun seemed to come to the same conclusion. He asked for a trade. But then shortly after that, he would become absolutely untradeable. In March of 2021, a Houston massage therapist filed a civil lawsuit against Deshaun. Shortly after that, what you say, like 21 more women also came forward accusing Deshaun of pretty much the same thing, or let's just say very similar acts. In order to keep this as YouTube friendly as we can, let's just say he was accused of asking for massages in weird places. He was accused of forcibly kissing one lady, and he was also accused of rubbing himself up against another one. A lot of really weird things that would absolutely fall under the sexual assault or sexual harassment tag, right? Assuming they were true, again, these are accusations. Now, a lot of people miss this, but he did have 18 different massage therapists to actually come out of his defense. But the sheer numbers of the other accusations and some of the details that started to emerge, let's just say it wasn't looking good. So now let's bring it back to the present. Like I said in the intro, a hearing was held today here in Houston, actually 2 hearings, because he also had a separate deposition for the civil cases. Oddly enough, it was only like a mile down the street from the court where the grand jury hearing was held. Actually, I don't know if that's odd. I don't follow that many legal situations like this, so maybe that's normal. Now, in the deposition, Deshaun actually pleaded the fifth for every single question, which doesn't seem that crazy until you consider the fact that the deposition lasted for 3 hours. But of course, his lawyer advised him to plead the fifth for every single thing. Do not answer any of the questions, and his lawyer actually gave a reason for it. Here's the quote. No lawyer in the universe would allow his client to answer questions at a civil deposition while that subject matter is under investigation before the grand jury. And that does actually make sense. They even warned that they weren't going to answer any of the questions, but they still decided to hold the deposition because, it's a legal proceeding, something you just got to go through. So basically they're saying that the deposition was a waste of time, but if I'm the lawyer of the accusers, I'm absolutely pushing for the deposition because he might slip up and say something, and then I can also play the card, well, hey, if he's not guilty, then why is he pleading the fifth, So that's just a little strategic thing going on between both of the lawyers. I always think that type of stuff is interesting. I'm interested in strategy. With all of that said, the real story was happening a mile up the street, where the grand jury sat for 6 hours as the DA presented 9 criminal complaints. And when it was all said and done, the grand jury decided not to indict Deshaun on any of them, which we have to assume means that the evidence was not strong enough to indict. Also, according to the Houston Chronicle, Division Chief of the Adult Sex Crimes Division declined to elaborate any further, as grand jury proceedings are top secret and protected by Texas law. So in a nutshell, just like I was saying on Twitter, that means Deshaun is back in the NFL. Some people aren't gonna like that. Some people are gonna like it. Some people are gonna be whatever about it, but it's a fact. You know what I'm saying? He's back in the NFL, and according to Ian Rappaport and anybody else with a brain, his trade market is now going to be through the roof, as teams are desperately searching for a quarterback, and they'll absolutely take a 26-year-old who now only has civil cases to deal with, meaning he's going to be probably coming out of them pockets pretty soon, and he might also get a suspension by the NFL, but the criminal stuff is done. There's no jail time. None of that's happening. That's over with. Now, some of the teams mentioned have been the Panthers, which I think is a pretty cool spot. Go over there with Christian McCaffrey and who they got, DJ Moore. Now, I also saw the Steelers, and as a Bengals fan, I'm not really feeling that. I'd honestly be kind of upset just given the fact that I was a huge Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson fan while they were in college. I remember gathering all the boys up together to watch Louisville versus Clemson. Even though that game ended up not being that great, I was like, yo, these are the next two dudes. So to have both of them in my division playing against my team, I wouldn't be happy with that at all. Also, I'd rather not hear the Twitter comparisons of Ben Roethlisberger and Deshaun Watson. We're going to hear him anyway, but if he plays for the Steelers, that's going to be nonstop. But also, most of the reports have said that he'll likely go to an NFC team, as the Texans don't want to trade him to another AFC team, which makes sense. Another team that's been mentioned is the Eagles, and that'll be cool. No offense, but the NFC East isn't the most competitive division at this time, at least. And another team I've seen is the Seahawks, which just hearing what Greg Olsen recently said about the Seahawks and just kind of seeing the issues that Russell Wilson had with them not really wanting to open up the offense, and a lot of people feel that their systems are a bit antiquated. I don't know, from a football standpoint, maybe not the best spot for Deshaun, but for Deshaun himself, bro, anywhere he's playing ball, he's gonna be he better be happy, because this situation could have been a hell of a lot worse. As a viewer of the NFL, as a fan of Deshaun on the field, I want to see him back doing what he does best. With that said, a lot of these accusations had me looking kind of sideways at my dude, bro. And like I said at the beginning, he has been cleared of all charges. Doesn't mean that absolutely nothing happened. Deshaun and his lawyers have admitted that things happened, but they say that the things were consensual. So it could just be one of those situations where there's not enough legal proof for anything to happen from a legal standpoint. Again, I do not know. I will not claim to know. I know some of y'all are going to go in the comments and pretend to know. And you know what? To be honest, that's perfectly fine. Everybody can have an opinion. But the fact of the matter is, Deshaun Watson is going to be back in the NFL this year, most likely with a new team, and we'll have to see how it goes. Now, again, like I said, the civil suits are very much still alive. Also, he's going to have that cloud cloud, man, that media storm just following him around for, you know, the foreseeable future. But people do tend to forget about these things over time. I won't call names, but we've seen it before. We've absolutely seen it before. So I'm not gonna sit here and act like this is the first time I've ever seen this happen. It's not. But that's all I got for y'all, man. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. I'll catch y'all boys in the next one. Peace.